Hi, Marvina.
Hi, Renee. How are
Uh,
you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain.
Awesome, awesome. I'm coming off of a little bit of a uh, sinus infection, so I have
Okay.
kind of. I tell people that's my sexy voice, but it just sounds more like a chain smoker or something.
Okay.
Um,
I know something, a lot of people are dealing with sinuses and that
yeah,
post drip and then the cough and, it's a lots going around, but I'm glad you're feeling.
yeah, yeah. I am doing better for sure. So. And today we're on episode 30. Wow, huh? Not bad, not bad. And we
Yeah,
thought we'd talk about the year ahead.
sounds good. It's a good
Yeah,
time to do it too, huh?
yeah,
Beginning of the year, yep.
yeah. So did you make and break any resolutions yet?
Well, probably, okay, yes, yes and no. I did make not necessarily resolutions, but I am trying to be more focused this year. Um,
Hmm.
Now, of course, we're a couple of weeks in, right? So, my prayer is God give me the ability to the longevity. Let me be able to stay focused this year. So I'm trying to take one bite of the elephant at a time
Yeah, there
instead
you
of
go.
making all these promises. How about let's start with one? And so I am excited for 2024, but just trying to be really more focused on him and what he wants me to do,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
he wants me to move, whether in relationships. And I think sometimes we put more emphasis on things than we have to, like as far as ministry and things like that, right? We think
Hmm.
that you have to sometimes it has to be this big thing, or you have to be, on a stage in front of a million people, but in just our everyday life, our everyday relationships. So I'm trying to focus on, okay, God, let me just be cognizant of the relationships that you have me
Hmm.
in my circles. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes we just look, there's people right in my circle, in my community, that I need to connect with in my village, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just asking God to help me to focus more on him and how he wants me to move to affect other people, trying to get out
Hmm.
of the way of self.
Right.
Asking for,
Yeah,
you know, wisdom.
yeah,
Which I know you're gonna be talking about. But yeah, just, I'm
yeah.
excited. I am excited. But just trying to actually keep the I don't know if I would necessarily, I'm trying to avoid, that's why I'm having a difficult time. I'm trying to avoid saying the promise that I'm making, because it just puts a different weight on it for me. But so just that follow through. I'm
Right,
trying to
right,
focus on the follow through.
right,
How
right.
about you?
Yeah, I think the same is true, for me. It's we have a tendency to think that if you do something for God, it's got to be big, or it's got to be um uh you know uh a grand scale if it's going
Yes.
to mean something to
Uh-huh.
him or mean something to our faith. And you're right, it can just be the people around us. And that's
Hmm.
that's where our ministry is, and a lot of
Hmm.
times we lose focus on that. So I
Right.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
focus. One thing God's been dealing with me about, and really it kind of started at the end of the year and has
Okay.
progressed, is about wisdom, you
Okay.
know. asking God for wisdom. You and I have spoke. The end of the year was not good for me going into retirement. There was some
Mhm.
real animosity at work. There was some real difficulties, and I was frustrated beyond belief with a coworker, but also it translated to my manager.
Okay.
And so, I'd come home and I'd just be frustrated that okay, you're not hearing what I'm trying to share with you. So I got home, and I think it was even the last day of work, which was the 29th of December.
Mhm.
I came home, and I was just so frustrated still with my manager. He didn't seem to be receiving what I was trying to tell him, and my concerns. And the Lord just prompted me at that minute, "Have you prayed for him?" And I
Mhm.
went, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
no, you know, I haven't done that. I've been too busy being frustrated,
Mhm.
to think about praying for him, because what I'm telling him should be enough. He
Mhm.
should get it, right?" And I think you and I talked about this earlier, is that sometimes we want to think that the way we're doing it is the right way, right?
Right.
And so the Lord really checked me on that as far as praying.
Okay.
And then it was a couple of days later, we get this email from him, and he says, "Hey, I'm sorry if things have been weird, at work with me." And he had all of these family things that had happened. He was a victim of a crime, and it went to
Oh.
trial. He lost his father, or his stepfather, who had
Mhm.
raised him pretty much,
Mhm.
and it was now trying to get his mother's living situation,
Mhm.
organized. And at that moment, I just felt very convicted,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I had the situation in front of me. And if I had thought about it, if I had stepped back, I would said, "This is not my manager's typical way of dealing with me or dealing with us. This
Mhm.
is, there's something off about it."
Yes.
But still, even though there was something off,
You
I came right back to, here's what we need to fix,
yeah.
right? So the Lord just really spoke to me about what we need is wisdom, not our wisdom, his wisdom,
Right. Right.
you know.
Right.
And there's a story that my friend told me years ago, and it popped into my head, right? And so she lives up in the foothills,
Okay.
and she was going out and kind of isolated a little bit. She was going out to her mailbox, and she looked down the road a little ways, and there was this car that was kind of across the road in a very odd way. And she looked a little closer, and there's this woman on her knees, and it looks like the woman is in distress. So she hurries and she walks toward the scene, and she realizes that this woman has hit a fawn with her car.
Oh, okay.
And the fawn, is on its side. It's there. Now she thinks that it's still breathing, but she thinks she's done damage that can't be repaired. So she's decided what she's got to do is she's got to put it out of its misery, right?
Okay.
So she goes to the trunk of her car, and she puts a piece of carpet over the deer's face. So
Okay.
as my friend is walking up, this woman now is choking the deer, trying to put it out of its misery, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. And just crying. And so my friend just thinks, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do here?" So she called CHP and said, "Hey, there's a situation here. This woman is freaking out. Something needs to be done." So CHP arrives, and she's, just has given up now trying to choke this thing to death.
My gosh.
And so the police get there, and he takes the carpet off the deer's face, and he's unholstering his gun, because may have to put it out of its misery. And so the lady's just screaming, "Just shoot it, just shoot it, just shoot it." And he goes, "Okay, well, if he doesn't get up." And so he kind of nudged the deer with his boot, the fawn, and the fawn jumps up and just takes off, right?
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, why am I thinking of this? How does it apply to wisdom? Right. And I thought, okay, let's take it from the deer's point of view, the fawn.
Right.
Mama has said, don't go near the road. We've lost Gary and John. A lot of people, have been,
Excuse me.
don't go near the road, but the fawn
Uh-huh.
still goes near the road, right?
Uh-huh.
And then something hits and just kind of knocks him for a loop.
Uh-huh.
And then you got all this stuff all of a sudden coming at you where you're being blinded,
Mhm.
you're being choked,
Oh, yeah.
somebody ready to kill you.
Almost being shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
thought to myself, how many times in our lives have we had those warnings in our spirit and friends or whatever?
Right.
Don't do this, right?
Yeah.
And then we get knocked for a loop. And then all of a sudden we're being blinded. We're
Yes.
being choked by the enemy,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure this deer is going, I just need to get up. I just need to get up. Legs don't fail me now. I just need to get up, you know. Um, but I thought about it as far as humanness, how we get ourselves into situations
Mhm.
because we don't use wisdom.
Right.
And we get to the point where, you know, okay, I'm going to make this choice anyway. I think I can handle it.
Yes.
I think this will be okay. And then you get knocked down.
Mhm.
And then what do you think is going to happen? Well, the enemy, while you're down, is going to be going,
Right.
I got her now.
Right.
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 And so I think that wisdom is something that we need, especially coming into this new year. I think this election year, I
Mhm.
think in just like you say, how we approach things
Mhm.
and our focus on things that are really that really matter
Yes. Mhm.
in life. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so the Bible says in Proverbs in particular, that's a great wisdom book,
Mhm.
talks
Mhm.
about searching for wisdom like you were searching for silver or gold
Mhm.
because it's precious.
Right.
It's a treasure.
Mhm.
And again, it's not our wisdom, it's God's wisdom.
Right.
And if you think of your situations, even thinking back about with my manager, had I used wisdom, had God's wisdom been a part of that process,
Correct.
you know, there wouldn't have been this. I'm sure him going through all of that and me battering him with
Right.
with the truth,
Right.
my concerns, um, it certainly didn't help him in his journey
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
his road. And
Mhm.
I thought to myself, man, how could that it could have been tempered to be a more loving approach,
Right.
you know?
And even the timing of it, right?
Right,
Because
right,
if you are following God, if it's God's wisdom, God is going to tell you, is going to present you with an opportunity for the timing too,
right,
right? Because I think, and I that's often a thing that I see with I don't want to say it like I'm saying it's other people, but because it's me too. So us as Christians, a lot of
mhm,
times we're so stuck in just speaking the truth. But if we're speaking it upon deaf ears, what is the point? Because we're moving in our own wisdom, right? Yeah,
right,
it may be something that we need to say or we need to share, but that may not be the appropriate time, or it
right.
may not be the appropriate approach. And so I do think that yes, we do have to pray for God's wisdom. And even like when it comes to parenting, and it's funny you say that because for the last few months, that's what I've been asking God. God, give me the wisdom to be the parent that you need me to be. Not that I think I need to be, but that you need me to be, because sometimes we just cross over into we're just being a parent, right? And we think that we are saying what needs to be said or doing what needs to be done. And again, you may be pushing your child further away, or because you don't know what they may be dealing with either. And that's why we have to pray for God wisdom, because God knows all. He knows each side of whatever, what he's doing with this person, what he's doing with this person, what he's doing with me. It's
Right.
very important. It is. And I think we would keep ourselves out of a lot of pitfalls and a lot of drama if we would just
Yeah.
simply do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just simply pray for wisdom, for
Right.
God's wisdom. And it's a continuous thing, right?
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
about, like, we always hear about Solomon and how he prayed for wisdom and how wise he was. But when he stopped, he got himself
Yeah.
into a whole bunch of stuff, you know?
Right.
So it's not just a one deal thing. We have to continue to pray for wisdom, as we grow as Christians, as we grow in our faith. We're never going to get to the place where we know it all. And I think we
Yeah.
forget that sometimes, because we're
Yeah.
just so bent on being on the side of right.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's true. But again, you know, God has to show us how to interact with that thing, whatever it is. And so
Right.
it's very important. And I do think that, starting off this year, it's a crucial time. Um, because like you said, it's election year, there's going to be a lot of things going on. And I mean, and that's, it's going to take wisdom for us to make certain decisions, even to keep our mouth closed sometimes when we should, or to speak up, you know what I'm saying? But again, we can't base it on, what we think, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. It's we have a key. We have the golden key of wisdom, right? Our wisdom.
Hmm.
And like you say, we want to jam it into the lock and it's going to work. We know, but if it
Yeah.
doesn't work, now we're going to bend the
Force it.
key.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, right. We're
Try
gonna
to
break the
force
key
it.
off
Yep.
and yeah, exactly. And then we're pulling it out with tweezers because we've broken the
Right.
key. And it's like the scripture, his ways are above our ways, his thoughts are
Yeah.
above our thoughts. So even when we come to decisions around us, or we think, well, no, I would never do that, I could never decide that, or
Right.
I could never go that direction.
Right.
Well, his ways are above our ways, his
That's
thoughts are above
right.
our thoughts. So we have to be careful that we're not and this was interesting too, I think, in what I learned about with my manager.
Mhm,
Sometimes if you're walking in wisdom
mhm,
and you are confident
mhm,
or cocky,
mhm,
you're on the wrong trail. You're on
mm,
the wrong,
mm,
because when God spoke to me about that and I said I needed wisdom in the situation with my manager, there was
mm,
a humility. There
mhm.
was almost an embarrassment when I learned what I should have been doing versus what I was doing.
Right.
And so I think when you're walking in God's wisdom, there is a humility because you're realizing, wow, I was so limited in how I thought.
Mhm,
And this is really what God had intended or what God
mhm,
wanted. So I think if there's a cockiness or
mhm.
confidence and overconfidence, sometimes
Yeah.
we have to be careful
Mhm.
because that means it's become our wisdom.
Right.
If
Right.
that makes sense,
It
yeah.
does. It does. And I do think, like, because it's a false sense of confidence, right? Because it's based on you. It's not based on him. It's based on
Mhm.
what you think, what you want, the results you want to see. It's, all of that feeds into it. And it, again, it's all you. When um you have to be humble, first of all. Um, because sometimes wisdom says, don't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes God tells us God's wisdom is just simply don't say anything. Sometimes, you know, we're involved in things, and sometimes it's just for us to simply pray. But that takes a lot of restraint. That it takes
Mhm.
so much, it's so easier to give someone a piece of our mind or to tell them
Mhm.
what we think. And that's where, again, you know, as a parent, I have to pull back. You know, at the time, I don't see it as cockiness or being overconfident, or, but it is because what I feel is I'm the parent,
Yeah.
you're the child, I know better. But that's
Yeah.
not always true. We all learn from each other. And
Mhm.
you know, and again, God might be trying to teach me something.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
instead of me thinking I'm being the teacher, no, maybe you need to be the student. But
Yeah.
that's where wisdom comes in, because you know, God's wisdom, you know, true wisdom comes in is you understand, and you recognize, okay, God, you know, all right, this isn't the time, or I need to approach it this way, or maybe I don't even need to say anything right now. God is might
Mhm.
just be showing you something, you know, he might be helping you put certain pieces together or showing you something to lead you to a certain point. But we always get in our own way all the time. We do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I do think wisdom is that is a very important thing to pray about, because it covers everything, you know. It
Mhm.
you know, with wisdom we'll know how to love people, you know, how
Mhm.
that love needs to look with certain individuals, you know,
Right.
especially those that are close to us, that we've been praying for, that are dealing with certain, you know, certain issues in their lives. And I do think that a lot of times you know, we're on the outside looking in, and we think that people should have the ability to, you know, walk away from certain things or put certain things down. And even though, you know, we're tired of seeing it or tired of them going through it, but we have to again check with God, because again, God has you in the, you know, in that person's life for a reason. And we have to do what it is he wants us to do, not what we want to do. And I think that's the
Mhm.
other thing, is that we just get so, we're so used, you know, because of our free will, and we're just so used to doing what we want to do. That's literally what we do, what we want to do.
Yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
everything
Exactly.
worse, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. And like you say, sometimes it could be in pieces that you're getting the wisdom
Yes,
for for someone.
right.
And so it's like, okay, well, I think now I've got this. I've got the answer, and we're going to jam it in, and the window hasn't been opened yet. God hasn't opened the window in
Mhm.
their heart. So now
Yes.
we're busting the glass.
Mhm.
Has it done them any good? No. And we come at
Mhm.
it with just a piece of maybe what the answer is, or what the,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah, it's interesting, yeah, because we have to, when we ask for wisdom, we have to, um, uh, uh, how I even say it, the wisdom has to come. Uh, it's not like you get it all, boom, and then you've got wisdom. Like you say, it's
Mhm.
it's it's a continuous thing.
Mhm.
So when you think you've got the answer for something, God's still working over here on maybe someone else, something
Mhm.
else.
Right.
Okay. And maybe it doesn't move quite like it should. So we have to say, okay, what is the next step? In
Right.
wisdom, what is the next step? Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
going back to Solomon, he inherited his father's kingdom, David's
Right.
kingdom.
Mhm.
David was a man after God's own heart, and
Mhm.
Solomon uh, inherited this. He got to build the temple for the Lord.
Mhm.
Um, he had everything.
Yep.
And God said, "What do you want?" And
Yep.
Solomon said, "I just want wisdom to guide these people,
That's right.
you know." And God was so pleased with that request
Mhm.
that he gave even more than what Solomon had asked for. And I
Mhm.
think that's sometimes too, we don't, I wrote a couple things down here out of Proverbs.
Mhm.
It says to wisdom to search for it like silver. With wisdom, we learn to fear God. With wisdom, we gain knowledge of God.
Mhm.
When we have wisdom, we gain common sense. We experience protection and safety,
Right.
and we receive joy.
Right.
So I think those are
Right.
the indicators. Am I walking in wisdom?
Mhm.
Well, if you're not receiving joy through it all, it might
Mhm.
not be wisdom. If it's not producing a knowledge of God
Right. Right.
or a fear of the Lord, then maybe it's not exactly what it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Excuse me. And I think sometimes we ask for wisdom and we think it's gonna look one way,
mhm,
and that's not what it looks like. Sometimes wisdom, going back to humility, sometimes wisdom is you got to humble yourself and
right,
you have to apologize, or you have to humble yourself and you have to go back to sitting quiet, or wisdom says I need to go I need to, what, it helps, it tells us we have to be accountable too for
right.
our actions.
Right.
There's that mug again. I'm my eyes. I said, there's that mug again. I'm rolling my eyes. Mhm.
Sorry.
But I think, we ask for Are you being wise, ma'am?
I
But,
suspect not.
but I think we ask for wisdom, and sometimes we think you know, it's gonna look one way. It's gonna make you look like the smartest person in the room. No, it's the total opposite of that. You know,
Right, right.
so so yeah, I think that's a good place to start at the beginning of the year. Because again, God has so much for us to do,
Right,
so many lives for us to pour into and to share the gospel. And in today's world, it takes his wisdom to be able to do that. And I go back to, again, even the way we share the word sometimes, it takes wisdom. Times are changing, and I'm not saying that we need to be like the world, that we don't, but at the same time, we need to be able to reach the world. And
right.
it does no good for us to be yelling from the rooftops and no
Right.
one is hearing what we're saying. And so um I agree with wisdom being a good place to start. um
Yeah,
Starting out the new year, and
yeah,
that's the only way we're going to be able to get through making like a lot of the decisions that we have to make. We got to depend on God's word,
right,
and
right.
that's where that wisdom comes from praying and asking God for wisdom. Also, getting in the word and applying it. And even that, you need wisdom to be able to apply the word, because if
Right.
you're reading it and understanding it in your own understanding, we can make up all kinds of stuff. We can justify all kinds of,
That's right.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I've heard
exactly.
some justification. I'm like, how'd you get that out of that? You know,
Yeah.
but it goes back to us,
Excuse me.
depending on self. So,
Right, right. And a lot of times we forget that if you look at the ministry, well, you even look at what God did
mhm,
in in the Old Testament. You look at Jesus' ministry in the New Testament.
mhm,
None of it made sense,
right.
right? So we think it's like you say, it's got to look a certain way,
Yeah.
but God's wisdom is so far above ours
Yep.
that we need to think about that.
Mhm.
Well, this seems like a weird way to go. Well,
Mhm.
we have to remember God did things differently.
Right.
You
You know,
know,
and I
God,
go back oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't
no, no, no. I was gonna say God brought them to the Red Sea. It
Yeah,
didn't seem like the best way to go,
right.
but that was his wisdom. And so we have to remember sometimes if it doesn't match ours,
Yep.
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
probably an indicator that this is the way you want to go.
Right. Right. And, again, going back to parenting again, you know, um, it may not look the way you want it to look,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that God is not in the midst of it. And it needs wisdom to see beyond the physical of what you see, because it could be discouraging sometimes, depending on what situations you may be in. But again, wisdom is going to show you how to move through that thing. And again, and the parent you need to be, and that's where God is really dealing with me with wisdom, is I'm really having to lean on him, because parenting grown children is looks very different than parenting, um, young children. And even though I might not agree with everything, it's not always having to say it
Yeah,
and make my feelings known.
right,
We
right,
don't always know what's best. Again, so that's why we gotta depend on God. We have to depend on God, and we do. We have to ask God for wisdom. It's the only way we're gonna be able to navigate through life, successfully.
right, right. And
Mhm.
we're not to be the conscience or the
Yeah,
conviction, you
right,
know.
right,
God does that.
right.
Sometimes all he does is ask us to walk alongside them
Yeah,
as he's dealing with these people. He
that's
just wants
exactly
somebody to walk alongside. And
that.
so I think a lot of times we want to be the conscience,
Right.
conviction,
Yep,
and yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Not just to
So
tell you, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, you
So,
because when I look at my life and I look how certain people have approached me about certain things, you know on the one hand, I'm like, okay, I understand it, but like it's hard for me to receive the message because of your approach.
yeah,
And it's easy for people to dismiss also what you're saying because of the approach.
yeah,
If you have, and especially when it comes to our walk, it's just people are just so quick to say what others should or should not be doing it. And of course, yes, God is going to use you in that way in some people's lives. You know what I'm saying? Because we do have to be bold, and sometimes we do have to say things that we don't necessarily want to say. But again, it takes wisdom to be able to roll that thing out. And
right,
so yes,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a good start.
yeah. I think so. I think it certainly will make the year ahead um, more productive
Yes. Mhm.
for the Lord's kingdom and for
Yeah.
what He's trying to do.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so that's kind of been what He's really been dealing with me on. I don't want to be that dumb fawn,
Yeah.
you know. I know can dodge the cars. I can do it. Watch me, you know. It's like, no, your mom's been going, don't
Right.
do it. Don't do it, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And even, to even again, it takes wisdom to even be able to navigate through situations we've gotten ourselves into, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you so so yeah,
Yeah.
that I think that that's a great start for the new year. That's a
Yeah.
great start. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's important wherever you're at. I got a really nice letter. I learned that one of my cousins was in prison
Okay.
right before the holidays. And so I decided I'd write to him
Mhm.
and got a really nice letter back. And he says, Renee, he says, yeah, he says, this has been a very unfortunate situation in my life. He says, but I met the Lord here in prison.
Uh,
And he says, God has shown me such grace. So I
mhm.
think that's something to remember. If you're in a situation, if you've gone too far,
Yes.
you know,
Yep.
that, well, God certainly couldn't give me wisdom in this. Yes, he can.
Yes, he
He can
can.
show you his grace. He
Mhm.
can show you now. My cousin understands that he's in there for 9 more months.
Yeah.
So the consequence is still part of what he deals with,
Yes.
but he knows that God's grace
Yeah.
has been given and he's been really enjoying what God's doing. And
Mhm.
so I think that's an important thing to remember if we've gone too far
Mhm.
that no, God, you can always ask God for wisdom.
Always, no matter where
It,
you are in life. Yes.
anyway, so yeah, just always know that you cannot ask God for wisdom. Doesn't matter what you've done, who you've become, where you find yourself.
Mhm.
God's wisdom, and again, going back to what Proverbs says, wisdom uh, gives you you gain knowledge of God with wisdom when it's his wisdom. You learn to
Right.
fear him, you learn to understand him, you gain common sense. So there's so many benefits
Mhm.
um to walking this year
Mhm.
with God's wisdom in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I was reading something from Dr. Charles Stanley
Mhm.
on wisdom, and something that he wrote was, when people apply for a job, one of the first things they inquire about has to do with benefits, like you were talking about. They want to know what they will get for their work and how their future will be provided for. While those types of benefits are good and useful, there are other benefits available to us that come with eternal rewards, and that's what we're talking about. Um he talks about, the blessings of walking in wisdom, seeing the world from God's perspective. And that's what we need. And that's what wisdom does. Instead of us seeing it from our perspective, it gives us God's perspective. And
Mhm.
and then because I think that's where we get caught up a lot too, is again, we see it from our perspective. And that's kind of like you were mentioning, the situation with you and your manager. You were only seeing your perspective,
Right.
but God's perspective is all encompassing. You know what I'm saying? So it takes what he was going through, um, you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
through his wisdom, he may have said, well, like you said, Renee, he's acting different, maybe
Right.
he's going through something. And we all get caught up in self. That's why we need God. That's why. But the key
Right.
to keep going back, asking for that wisdom, because again, like King Solomon, in the end, we do not want to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you you end up
Yeah.
losing it all, and so, but
Right.
we have to continue to ask God to continue to give us wisdom for this walk,
Right.
so it's the only
Right.
way we're gonna get through it successfully, and
Right.
to be able to positively affect others' lives
Right. Right.
and draw them closer to Christ. That is our
Right.
goal. Mhm.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I had just a recent situation where a family member, very frustrating because of the mistakes they continue to make.
Uh-huh.
They continue to walk in this misery and this self-destruction, and so there on my end there's this frustration. I've
Yeah.
told you how to step out of this. I've told you in the recent exchange with this person.
Mhm.
I heard myself saying it, and
Mhm.
then I stopped, and it was almost like just a switch went off where I
Mhm.
looked at this person and I had more compassion than I've had in years.
Oh, good.
And it wasn't necessarily because of their tears, because there were tears at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was because I realized this person is trapped,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then there was that compassion for not just, well, you're just doing it and you're not paying attention and you're not, like you say, you're wagging your fingers at, if you just do what I tell you.
Right.
But it's like, I looked at this person and it's like, no, they're trapped.
Yeah.
They're trapped. And so there was a compassion. And I think that's another sign that God has given you wisdom in a situation, is because, like you say, his heart
Yes.
comes through, not
Yeah.
our frustration, not
Right.
our good
That's
advice, not our,
right.
it was his compassion. And so, yeah, I-
Good.
yeah, I think that's what he wants for us this year. Like I say, just because of everything that goes on in life, and our society and things around us. And I think God really wants to stress that maybe this year
Mm-hmm.
is my wisdom. Seek my wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. That's what I'm going to do.
Me too.
All right.
Me too.
Okay. Anything else?
I have nothing else.
No. No.
No.
Okay. Well, I apologize for my little coughing spell there. It's like, man, I hope I get over this
Yeah.
sinus thing, and
Yeah.
so won't
Well,
be hacking.
like you're feeling better, right? It's a
Yeah.
process, So
Yeah.
hopefully by the next time we see each other, you'll be a lot better. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
those residual effects it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And that
yeah.
cough always comes at the most inopportune moment, right? And you're like,
Oh,
okay,
man.
everybody's gonna think she is COVID stricken. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. There's nothing worse. You're in church and it's just, everybody, the spirit is moving and everything's
Yes.
quiet.
Right. And then you can't stop, right? And
Yeah.
it keeps coming up and you can't stop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So,
Well,
all
you
right.
enjoy these next few weeks.
All right. You as well. And
Can't
we'll,
wait to hear about your adventure that I'm sure you're gonna have by the time we come back.
yes, feeling better. I'm sure there will be an adventure out there for me. Yes.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, we're
So,
gonna apply wisdom. We're gonna seek God for his wisdom
right.
and and see how things turn out. Do something,
Yeah.
let's do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I like that. I like that. Oh gosh.
Ah,
So, okay.
okay. Well, until
Well,
next time.
until next time, you
All
take
right.
care.
You
All
too,
right.
Renee. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.